This is the Project Labor Agreement Key Points page. The purpose of this Key Points document is to highlight important sections of the PLA. The Crenshaw LAX Transit Project is both state and federally funded. The Crenshaw LAX Transit Project is both state and federally funded, so there may be aspects of this PLA that are new to you, and Walsh-Shea corridor constructors would like to draw your attention to pieces of the PLA that are often misunderstood by CSEs. In no way should this document be referred to exclusively. All CSEs are responsible for reading the PLA, and they must comply with every aspect of the PLA if they wish to do project work. The first key point is that you understand who is excluded from the PLA. It is a common misconception that a CSA thinks his or her work is specialized and therefore excluded from the PLA requirements. In most cases, this is not true. You should check with Walsh-Shea corridor constructors and the unions to determine how your scope of work is classified under the union. You cannot classify your work as specialized if the union has a classification for it. Exclusions are detailed in Article 2 of the PLA in Section 2.4. Please refer to this section for more detail. The second key point is wages and benefits. All workers, both union and non-union, must register with the union and sign a subscription agreement on a per-project basis in order to perform work on the project. You, as an employer, are required to pay contributions to the established employee benefit funds in the amount set by the unions. These fringes must be paid to union trust and not to cash to employees. The wages and benefits are detailed in Section 8 of the PLA. Please refer to this section for more detail. The third key point is referral. Referral states that unions are the primary source. Referral states that the unions are the primary source of all craft labor employed on the project. Core workers are those workers who have appeared on your payroll for 60 of the previous 100 days preceding the award of project work. You must identify your core workers in your employment hiring plan and provide records showing they qualify as core workers. Craft work employment should take place as follows. One core worker will be hired first. Then one worker will be hired from the applicable hiring hall list. This process will repeat until there are 5 core workers hired. In the event of a layoff or reduction of workforce, the number of core workers will never exceed the number of non-core workers. On federally funded projects, the unions are required to hire national targeted workers. For this project, a minimum of 40% of all work must be performed by national targeted workers with priority given to residents of extremely economic. For this project, a minimum of 40% of all project work must be performed by national targeted workers with priority. For this project, a minimum of 40% of all work must be performed by national targeted workers. For this project, a minimum of 40% of all project work must be performed by national targeted workers with priority given to residents of extreme economically disadvantaged areas in the United States. A minimum of 10% of all work hours will be performed by disadvantaged workers in the United States. At least 20% of your total work must be performed by apprentices. Of that 20%, 50% of apprentices must be performed by local targeted workers. It is required that you submit written documentation to LACMTA on a quarterly basis. Referrals Referral is detailed in Article 7 of the PLA. Please refer to this section in more detail, including disadvantaged worker criteria. Finally, the fourth key point is effect of agreement. Effective agreement requires that you submit a signed copy of a letter of assent binding you. Effective agreement requires that you submit a signed copy of a letter of assent binding you to each and every provision of the PLA. The letter of assent must be submitted to the project labor coordinator 48 hours before the commencement of project work. Effective agreement is detailed in Article 3 of the PLA. Please refer to this section for more detail.